and I will introduce. Oh yeah, and we have a recording in progress. Of course, we'll record the session, so if you would rather have your camera off during the presentations, of course, you are free to do so. We would very much, after the presentations, if possible for you, and if it makes sense, have your camera on so we can see each other. It's not just this kind of black hole we are speaking and reflecting into. And we'll also make a transcription of the recording. Right. So first up, first presentation, which I'm really excited for. I'm equally excited for both, of course, but we have Anette Parviste, and the co-founder and CEO of AudioCat, which is this innovative game development company that are dedicated to creating accessible audio games for visually impaired players, while trying to bridge the gap between sighted and visually impaired gamers. So AudioCat's mission and Annette's mission is to promote accessibility in gaming, fostering inclusivity, and building a diverse community where everyone can enjoy unique and immersive sound-based experiences. So you could say that, looking to this description from Epic, we have this exciting opportunities to reflect on what it means to have other senses in games, and perhaps other values in games, how we, with other types of games, such as audio games, can own the game visuals with our imagination, have them within our imagination, have a freer or an alternative imagination space when we play games. We can also see how a community for a certain disability, visually impaired, might have the potential of being, in a wider sense, games for diversity in games and game making. That is, everyone that are on the lookout or wants something else or sensing otherwise in games than what we have at the present moment. So yeah, I'm really excited for this presentation, and I'll give the floor to Annette. Annette, thank you for being here and joining us. Really looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you. And yes, I said I am Anette, or in Estonian way, I'm Anette. I am the co-founder and CEO of AudioCat, but first I will little bit introduce myself. And in that sense that I know that there are some people who are visually impaired in this meeting, then I will describe that there is also a picture of me holding my dog Ronja, who is like a little bit shorter fur, grayish, blackish dog. And it's like in a winter setting taken recently. And about me, I tried to list like the most important things about me. And I think the most important thing about me is I am the mother to two fur babies, my dog Ronja and my cat Leo or Leonardo, who I will speak about a little bit more later. I am also a startup founder. AudioCat is my startup, which I will speak about soon more. And I am a university student, first year, studying information society and social well-being, which goes very well together with my startup's mission and values. And I hope that like kind of area, studying this area will help me grow as a person and as a founder. And also, I'm an avid gamer. I play a lot of different games, but my main game that I always find myself coming back to is, of course, the biggest of them all, World of Warcraft, which I will add some comments. And I like very much creative writing. Right now, for AudioCat, I do the game design, but I still like more like just like creative writing, not like any kind of like mission oriented, but just like writing my ideas creatively. Next slide, if you can. And here is written on this slide, Anette as differently abled gamer. I don't really like the word that I am a like disabled person or disabled gamer, although like on the paper I am a disabled person, severely disabled person. I have ADHD, which can cause major problems in life and also in gaming. since I like to jump from topic to topic. I like to be fast. I like different settings. One day I play one game, like my friends get adjusted to it, but the next day I will choose another game, and like my friends need to get adjusted to it. So I know that I can cause a lot of problems with my jumping from one subject to another. And actually tied to ADHD comes my like that I'm on autistic spectrum. I'm an Asperger, and that is a weird thing because ADHD loves chaos, and autistic people love order. So basically, I have in me two brains. I have one that loves order, one that loves chaos, and that is the basic reason why I only got to these slides today, because I was like, I want to do one thing, no, I want to do other thing, and I couldn't decide. And that happens to me in everyday life, and it happens in like a gaming life. One day I like one character, the other day I like the other character. It is quite chaotic, but although I am a very big perfectionist as well, so I'm a like huge side quester. I like to go from one side quest to another side quest. Basically, I have so many games. I don't know if most of you know Fallout 4. I haven't completed the game, but I have completed most of the side quests because I go around, I find a side quest, and I find another side quest, and like the main game is not completed, but I did watch the YouTube walkthrough tutorial, so I know what are the endings for that game. And one other kind of diagnosis that I have that is not, I don't talk about it this often. I have a dissociative disorder, which I have the part like when it's like dissociative amnesia, basically. I like to call it that my brain goes on a vacation. But it's that like I lose contact with reality, and I continue acting as a normal person even, but my brain is not recording. I can't answer what I did afterwards because I don't know what happened. And there has been times when I was living with my flatmate, who is also my best friend and co-founder of AudioCat. We were living together, and there were times when actually one time when I woke up in the middle of the night, I turned on my computer and I went to play World of Warcraft. And later in the morning, my flatmate said that to me, that you know what you did, like you went to the World of Warcraft and you played like PvP and you nailed it. And then I was like, wow, I must be smarter when I'm like dissociative. I must be like better at PvP than I am actually in real life. So these are like my kind of weird things. But now I would little bit talk about more about AudioCat and why AudioCat is what it is. Next slide, please. On this slide, there is a picture of my cat, Leo, who is a long-furred orange cat with green eyes. He is differently able street cat because he is, I wouldn't say 100%, but some percentage is visually impaired. He bumps into things, he misses some jumps, he does some weird things that like I would say that cat who would see quite clearly wouldn't do. But thanks to him, we are now making impact for millions of people and sharing our ideas, because it started all about us making simple video game about Leo. And we were like in the middle of making, we had a team, we like had an idea, I had all the game design for Leo, and like how like Leo travels to different dream worlds and dream lands, and in the end up some like nice place or a bad place depending on the ending. We had everything planned out, and that I wanted to tell the story of Leo when he was a street cat, how he got home and everything. But then happened one bigger event in my hometown. It was TEDx Tartu, which is a TEDx, basically a spin-off series in my home country, Estonia. And there was one woman speaking who's like the accessibility enthusiast in Estonia, Piret Aus. And she talked about how she, for example, made the Estonian big famous song and dance festival accessible for the blind and for the deaf people. And I was so impressed by her presentation. It was so different. It was completely new world for me because I have never thought about one fact that I, after her presentation, went to her and asked, please tell me how blind people play video games. Please, next slide. And this is how AudioCat basically got started. On the screen is a orange fluffy cat with green eyes wearing white headphones, holding a white controller, and underneath it is written AudioCat. And we started working on this idea that we want to make video games accessible. And then we found out that, oh, there are many audio games out there that like standalone audio games, and they are actually pretty amazing and pretty cool to like listen to and like play through. But what we discovered that there weren't any like platforms where you can just go in, immerse yourself in the experience, play different games, have kind of like emotional connection to the games. And we decided that that is a problem that needs to be solved, even though that until this day, when I go to major startup events, I'm getting asked all the time, why do I do this? Why don't I choose something that is more profitable, something more that you can earn more, make yourself a unicorn, or like something more? And every time I'm just saying that I'm doing this actually for the community, for the people who are already with us and who will be joining us. Because we, at the beginning, we started, yes, that we want to build for the visually impaired community, but actually we want the sighted people to join as well, because why can't we all play together, like enjoy something together and like not care about the fact, can you see or can't you see, just like enjoy the experience together. Next slide, please. And that is why we build with people for the people. And that's also written on the slide, is that we right now have grown into an amazing team. We have, right now, we have 3 interns, 2 part-time people and 2 full-time people who are working on the dream, making this dream possible. And potentially more people are joining us. And we are very open. I am very open in like the sense that I know that many of the founders and the CEOs have very like they know what they want. They ordering people around, but I always ask for opinions. I ask opinions from my team. I ask opinions from the community, and we are building it all together. Just like, because we know that if we build something that like I have like a dream inside my head, then maybe people actually in the end would not like it, and it wouldn't be accessible, it wouldn't be inclusive for all. So that's why it's so important for me to listen to my people in my team, to listen to my people in my community, and that we can really build together something like something amazing. Next slide, please. And that is it actually from me. And on the slide is again a long-furred cat with white headphones, white controller, and green eyes smiling. And underneath is written, thank you. And who is interested to know more about AudioCat, you can reach me, you can contact me. And I am very willing to discuss more. Sorry, I'm a bit flustered and little bit overwhelmed today. I had a very difficult meeting before that, so I'm little bit all over the place, but I hope I got some points across, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Annette. And you only seem flustered in the best of all ways, I would say. Like, thank you for a very inspiring, very important presentation. Please jot down in your mind or on paper or in the chat your questions, comments, reflections for Annette, which we'll take in the Q&A. Also, to get something from such an expert in the room, I have at least jotted down. You can see 3 questions. I'm eager, but I'll leave the space for everyone else. And again, we'll take all those questions, reflections, comments, idea for you, Annette, to the Q&A after M's presentation and after the short joint reflection activity. So that also means that we will move into even more diversity and inclusion, because next up we have M. Hansen, which is a research assistant, which is coming from within the project. M is a research assistant at Aarhus University and works with a specific focus towards diversity and inclusion, especially within the domain of youth, culture and citizenship, and within EPIC-W. They hold a master's in aesthetic and culture and have specialized in the intersection between queer theory, inclusion and diversity, and in connection to the creative games industry. They have first-hand experience participating in EPIC-W cultural game jams, which is the central activity of the EPIC-W project, and have worked as part of the project in facilitating cultural game jams as part of the Aarhus Culture Hub, and is a sitting member of the EPIC-W Youth Advisory Board. And you already gave a presentation already in the capacity building series, so I'll share the link to that if someone here wants even more after M's presentation. Go and watch the video. It's a brilliant video as well. So nice having you here. Really looking forward to reflections on this very important subject. The floor is yours.
Sweet. Is my screen sharing working for the people who can see that?
Yeah, perfect, Em.
Great. Well, thank you, Annette, for that was a quite awesome presentation. I'm gonna repeat a lot of the things you said and a lot of the points that you had, but I think that's a good thing. I think that means that we are all aligned in our efforts. So I will start out by giving a short presentation about me. And for those who are visually impaired, I am not very used to describing images, so I might not be as thorough as Annette, but I will give it my best shot. This is on this slide, it says about me, and there's a picture of me being very goofy and smiling like frankly like an idiot. I am very happy in this picture. And about me, I have, as Rikke mentioned, I am currently working as a research assistant in this project, aiming to make it more inclusive and empowering as many people as possible to participate in video game culture. I have previously worked within video game industry as like a producer, director, coordinator, story writer type person, one of those octopuses that has a hand in every aspect of game design. And I hold a master's degree in aesthetics and culture. I think more importantly, when we're talking about inclusion and diversity, I am 25 years old. I'm also transgender, non-binary queer. I have autism and PTSD. I have white privilege, and I'm middle class, and probably most important in this exact context, I am able-bodied. I can move all of my limbs, and I have close to perfect vision, and I think those are quite important to mention when we are talking about who can participate and who cannot. I have a position from which I'm talking, and I think that should be mentioned as always. I will just start a timer so I can also keep track of how far I'm in. So I'll start out by talking a little bit about what some of the issues that are documented within video game industries are. Currently, my screen is being quite abnormal right now. I'm going to try sharing it again. I think it's this one, yeah. And current slide. So some of the issues at play we have the classic issues of video game of racism and ableism and derogatory language in video games. I think we shall see some examples later, so I won't put a source for this. You will experience it firsthand. We have a very unequal access to play and participate video games, which Anette, you are working very diligently on mending that gap. And we have discriminatory lewd narratives and lewd pictures, which propels ableism and gender discrimination. These are things like sexism in character design, or ugliness as a method of creating monsters and stuff like that, that aesthetically highlights some quite problematic things in culture. We also have, of course, a lack of arenas to highlight games as culture. We have a lack in arenas where people can participate and actually come with inputs in what should game culture be. And of course, just a general lack of representation in video games. We have the whole discursive aspect. Recently, they announced the next The Witcher game, and the comments on those videos are quite heinous and sexist, to be honest. And of course, we have some criticalities and some discrimination and inequalities in video game industry. We have a lot of precarities preventing video games industries from re-enabling participation and like entering into video game creation. And I think here I might do a quick side note and explain how I use the term re-enable, because unlike you, Anette, I am quite a big fan of the disabled term, but not as something you are, as something you have been made or something that is made onto you. Everyone can be disabled in something. It's not about whether you are disabled or not, it's whether or not you are enabled to do something. And this is why I use the re-enable term, because it's not about whether the person is able to or not, it's about whether or not we have afforded them to participate. It's a design flaw, basically, if people can't participate. And that there's discrimination on a larger societal level is also a design flaw in my perspective. We also have some fairly critical aspects of the impenetrability of video game creation. It's a very difficult field to get into. And I expect, particularly if you are hard at sight, have a difficult time actually seeing code, you would have a very difficult time to actually enter into it. This, of course, also makes it very, very difficult to try to fix any of these issues, because you don't get the input from people who actually live with these issues or these disenablings. You also have within video game industry, it's fairly well documented that there's gender discrimination, racism, and discrimination based on societal position, despite the industry having a rumor of not having it. A lot of it has to do with how you perceive discrimination. There's a lot of positivity towards stuff like gender inclusion, but in practice, it looks a lot worse than you might imagine. And of course, we also have classic problems of regimes of taste and quality preventing participation and funding. Simply put, if people don't think your game lives up to a certain standard of quality, then it doesn't get funding. And it's difficult to measure quality on projects that are outliers of the industry. For example, making games for blind people, I think everybody can agree is a honest and productive way of making games. But if you have to mediate the story in a way that doesn't fit well with any of the categories, it's difficult to find funding for. I have some citations for this. I think I've linked them in the end of the PowerPoint, but otherwise you can write me and I will send you some links. And yeah. So within culture, like within the video game culture in itself, we have some digital cultures we have some aspects of some issues within maturity and like this is not issues that are only within video game culture. We see racism and sexism everywhere, and ableism as well. So one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, how much is this a video game problem, or how much is this just video games being a channel for it? It doesn't change the fact that we should aim to alter it, but it's a question that is worth like asking. So why are some of these questions? some of these difficulties and issues within video games. We have the classic issue with a lot of kids are using it, and that is often very regulated. Whether that's an issue or not is up to debate, but whether or not it should be regulated is an issue, at least in Danish politics right now. We have the new wave of the digital scare, where everyone is so afraid of digitality that it's a difficult topic to actually discuss, and it's a difficult topic to actually teach about. Also, how many kids do you know who are willing to listen to old people talk about the internet? Not a lot of people. That's also the problem of colonial history within game design and colonial and fantasy genres specifically. And those have often preset the design templates for these genres, and therefore the game mechanics often recur these things. We have a lot of, we also have a lot of economic actors and polarization with economic means within video game industries right now, where there's a bit of a crisis within indie video game industries, which creates a lot of hegemonic and anti-pluralistic design choices as well. And that's also the one of the classic problems, because every game designer I've ever talked to are a fan of inclusion and diversity in game design, but they don't know how to implement it and they don't know how to design it. So there's also an aspect of teaching people how to actually design these things and creating tools for designing inclusion. So what are the benefits? Because sometimes people actually ask this, and then you described that as well, that sometimes people actually ask you, why are you doing this? Well, if the goal of inclusion and diversity is not enough in its own right, then let's give some examples for why you could do this, and why would you ever want inclusion and diversity? Well, it's fairly well documented as well that higher quality of games are produced when the team is pluralistic, like when they are different gender, different backgrounds. We often see that games are of higher quality. We also see that from a cultural perspective, that nurturing the culture within video games actually increases participation with the game and increases consumer loyalty, if we want to take a business perspective from it. A great example of that is Deep Rock Galactic, who really nurtures their community and therefore has a lot of very loyal fans who co-create and give inputs and feedbacks, and in general keep the game alive, even what is it now, almost 10 years since the game has been released. We also have that when you nurture the culture to be inclusive, you also nurture quality of participation to be inclusive, which means that if you create a game design that appeals to differently abled bodies, of course, differently abled bodies will gather around it, and that can be a resource in of itself. You can create communities through design. You also have games for culture, as culture, through culture. One of the main pillars of Epic We is that games in themselves is a part of cultural heritage, and that cultural heritage also can be mediated through games. And that way, if there's inequality in video game culture, then there's inequality in cultural heritage. And I think from a cultural perspective, that is quite dire. And of course, there is also the concept of games as a new way of exploring museology and exploring play. And from an industry perspective, there is, of course, that differently abled bodies are often can be perceived as a new market group. There are not that many games that are accessible to differently abled bodies, and I dislike this take very much. I think making it a market group in of itself is not a very good reason to do anything, but maybe it can make some people feel more secure about investing in this. So I will put it out there. There's of course the potential for new innovation through new design challenges. Designing for blind people is a whole other thing than designing for people with sight. And of course, there's also the potential of extending the value chain with new collaborations. So now we talked a lot about the problems. We talked a lot about the issues at hand. So now let's talk about what can we actually do about it. Well, and here I will start about what are we doing in Epic We, and then move out to some outside examples of what's being done about it, hopefully to give some inspirations to how we can approach this together. in Epic, we have what I would describe 3 pillars of inclusion. I don't think they're officially stated anywhere, but I would say these are the 3 pillars that I am at least working with, and that I have seen people take very, very large interest in within the project. The first aspect is youth empowerment, and we already had a workshop on youth empowerment, so I'll talk a bit about this. Then we have neurodivergency in participation. People with autism having a hard time in larger rooms with a lot of people where there's a lot of noise, for example. Some of the people, well, I'll get around to it. And then we have queer inclusion in the facilitation of the game and also the communication around the game. And regarding the youth empowerment, we have established these youth advisory boards to hopefully nurture a community of input and feedback. I think if you are not following the project, or if you haven't heard about it yet, or if you just forgotten or didn't notice, I think that this is a topic worth looking up. The whole establishment of advisory boards as a method of creating inclusion and feedback models to create more inclusion and further diversity. And there's a third workshop on the way sometime in February. I can't remember, but I'm assuming Billy is gonna type it in chat about empowerment and youth advisory board as well. And regarding the neurodiversities, we had a lot of feedback both from the first game jam in Aarhus and the second game in Aarhus, and all over the place as well, that noisy rooms makes it very difficult to collaborate. And as a result, a lot of the people who have neurodivergency, who have ADHD or autism or similar diagnosis, without giving away exactly what the diagnoses were, had a hard time participating in our game jams, which resulted in a few people, the first time, a few people had to leave early because they were so overwhelmed with the whole thing. And part of the efforts that we have done is, for example, we have put aside now a room for when we create these game jams. At least in Aarhus, we have the capacity to put aside a room and say, this is a quiet room. This is a place where people can go when they need to work or when they just need a break from all the stimulation and all the noise and everything like that. And I think the difficulty in neurodivergency and including in neurodivergency is that a lot of the facilitations require a lot of either space or a lot of planning. And usually in projects, there are a few resources dedicated to this. And I think that is a recurring theme in a lot of inclusion and diversity thing, that everyone wants inclusion, nobody wants to fund it. Regarding queer inclusion, we have a lot of, we have had a astonishing amount of people with different gender identities participating in the Aarhus Hub, and I also know that some of our advisory board is consisting of a few people of queer identity. And some of the things we have done here is both in the data set when you sign up, we can try to include more gender identities, but something as simple as a pronoun pin for those who facilitate the thing can help create a more safe space where people feel safe to articulate queer identities. And I think one of the issues with facilitating queer identities, especially like in a project that spans multiple countries, is that there are different traditions and different customs for queer inclusion in different languages. Some places language can vary and hold a lot of power. Other places is the focus is elsewhere. And I think it's important to go into dialogue with queer people to actually find the solutions and the way to include people. As Anette said, the community needs a voice in this. But I think Epic is doing a great job on doing it, not only because I'm working on it, but in general, even before I started, there had been considerations of it. But I think maybe it's time to also look elsewhere, because a lot of efforts are being put into creating inclusions. So what is already being done about it? Well, we have a lot of technologies and technologies being innovated to re-enable bodies to exist and to play. I will highlight special effects as one of my favorite examples. They make game controllers for people who cannot move very well. Also, AudioCat, I put this on here before I met you, Annette, I will just say. We also have a lot of video game communities who are assembling and sort of unionizing against racism and banning Twitch users across the whole platform, whether they're just in their simple own chat. So we almost have unions of content creators going against racism within video games industries. We also have game engines who are going open source and spending time to nurture communities and knowledge and creating transparency for game design methods. And I think this exact aspect is something I want to highlight, because when we start to share knowledge like this and start nurturing platforms where we can share knowledge, it becomes much easier to facilitate inclusion, because it becomes much easier to share knowledge on how we can facilitate inclusion. There's, of course, an increased awareness on cultural and mental impact of video games, and it's becoming more common practice amongst indie game developers to actually take into consideration something like trigger warnings. And I think that is very much also a result of having to compete with the large video game companies who doesn't necessarily have the agility to accommodate these things. We also have another one of my favorite examples. I will get into that a bit more, where modders are starting to reclaim games through counter-colonial modding. That's a whole cultural wave now. And museums and cultural institutes are also collecting histories and methods of inclusion and queering in video games. If you haven't heard of Rainbow Arcade, I would severely recommend it. It's one of the best books on inclusion in video game culture I have ever read. It collects histories of both gays and lesbians and all sorts of identities and their development in video game, both industries and cultural and play, from I think it's 1985 till now, until 2023, I think. It is very, very good. This is special effects. On the screen is a YouTube thumbnail of a very happy girl in a wheelchair who has planned to live stream Planet Coaster 2. Her name or her YouTube channel is Ice Skates Girl. And she's probably one of the first streamers with, I can never pronounce it, Paul, with severe paralysis from face down. She can only move her eyes and slightly her mouth. But Special Effect has created a video game controller that you can control with your eyes. Sometimes she streams Minecraft as well, and you can really see the excitement going on there. And I think this is a very good example of how innovation can help help us to create a more inclusive space. We also have modders starting to reclaim spaces. On the first picture here is a Harry Potter character from Hogwarts Legacy, a game with a lot of controversy around queer inclusion, where modders have created a scarf for your character, which depicts the transgender pride flag. And on the second picture, we have a depiction of a Sami elder, who is from the video game Civilization 4, where a modder has created the Sami folk, like the Finnish northern tribes of indigenous people, and have modded them as a colonial power source in the game, turning the whole concept of colonialism on its head. So what can we do about it? We can do a lot about it. We have we can do transdisciplinary efforts. We can team up. We can be team players. We can start sharing our knowledges and inclusions. Inclusion is not a business secret. It's actually a thing that is very beneficial for us all if we start to talk about and facilitate inclusion. We can make our communications easily accessible. We can start to transcribe our meetings. We can start to image capture things and describe our images when we use them. And we can start to use gender inclusive language. These are very small efforts that can often do a lot to create a influx into participation. And of course, we can ask for feedback. And if you can't do much, if you have very little power to change things, do what little you can. I think the community effort is important in this. And as researchers, we have a whole lot of work ahead of us. We can shed the myth of positionless knowledge and start to acknowledge that, yes, we have a position. And if you are able-bodied, you probably generate knowledge in different manners than people who are not enabled in their participation in research. We can also start to include people in our research. You might miss the point if you don't actually ask the people that you're researching. The amount of people research into autism spectrum disorder that I have seen where they haven't talked to a single autistic person is staggering. And of course, research is not worth much if your research isn't accessible to people so that people can use it. And that also remember to ask the question, to whom are these research questions and these research results accessible to? You might create the solution to a lot of problems, but if the community that needs them cannot access it, it's not worth that much. And as game developers, we can orient ourselves in problematic aspect of game design and how to combat them. There's a lot of resources out there. Special Effect even has I think it's a Unity implementation, so that you can actually make your game compatible to the eye-based controller. We can research and find easy tools for creating accessibilities. There's a lot of them. You can think what is fun to others. Compromising your game design is not necessarily the way to go. Inclusion should also be fun. So simply making your controller accessible is not accessibility. That is just making your controller eye gaze based. And sharing is caring. Share your code, ask Reddit, post it on itch, include it in your dev logs, make accessibility a point to be articulated. I think a lot of the practices we have to do are discursive. And I think as policymakers, we can maybe consider accessibility as a requirement. We can start measuring accessibility in different ways, than more than just wheelchair accessibility, and measure it on more than just technicalities. And we can start to create the spaces where these things can be shared and where arenas can test these things. And I think, once again, this is where Epic Re is a great example, and a place where we can actually test out how can we create inclusion in game design and in culture. And I will encourage anyone, if you have any questions, any feedback, then please write me an email. I am happy to dialogue or take critique. Actually, if you have critique, please send it my way so I can get better at creating inclusion and diversity. And I think for now my time is up and has been for a while. So I think I'll end it here.
Thank you so much, Em, for a fantastic presentation and a very important presentation as well. I'm sure it sparked a lot of reflection, at least for me, comments, curious, pick your brain or other parts of your body. I don't know how to, say that. But please jot down your comments, post them in the chat if you can, or jot them down in your mind, jot them down on paper, and we'll bring them for the final Q&A session. I actually have 3 pages of questions now myself. I know others have. Thank you, Rasmus and Kansas for already posting some comments, questions out there. Keep them coming. But now I know we will have like a short activity, let's call it that, shared reflection before moving into the Q&A. So over to you, Berit.
Hi. I would like to thank to Anette and Em first for their great presentations and speeches. So for this section of the workshop, I have compiled some screenshots from some gaming communities, Reddit, from games, and I would like to say that the next screenshots might be disturbing and triggering because they do contain some racial slurs, slurs in general even, and for all our participants, I will be reading them out loud, which kind of makes me feel bad, but I am hoping that I will have your support. So I will share my screen, and while some of you can read it, and then the rest I will read out loud. So we will start, like I said, it might be some content here that might be triggering and disturbing. And if you don't like to hear these or see these, please just feel free to mute me or just shut down Zoom temporarily. So here in the first screenshots, I believe this is Steam, and it includes some screenshots of some public groups. They are all called Kill All the Jews, Nazis Kill Jews, and Kill the Jews. We see 3 different public groups that do spread hate. And one of them goes, have you ever wanted to be a Nazi and support Hitler in debt? Here is your chance. Moving on. Here in the next screenshot, we see a YouTube video of a content creator, and the video is called Racist Trolls Are Still Dominating Video Games. And under the video, we see first we see the speaker with the captions. People were still calling me the N-word. And then we see two comments in the comment section of the video. One goes, or you could just grow some balls. And the other one goes, people want to be oppressed so bad. Moving forward, in the next screenshot, we see a long conversation on Steam on a game reviewing, let's say. And the first original poster says that the game seems amazing, but I sadly cannot play it. And this person cannot see green. So it's very frustrating for them as a colorblind person because they can't really see some of the poisonous pools and other aspects of the game. And in the end, one person quotes, "My eyes don't work, so the game is bad." Moving on. And in the next screenshot, we see someone being bullied and harassed. What are you, they, them? Delusional. I hope you end your life. LGBTQ faggot, please do. Why would I care? Moving on with the other screenshot. One person is called a tranny in a gaming chat, unfortunately. And, oh well. Here we see a meme format. On the left, we see this person looking kind of frustrated, angry, frowning, and it says, "There are gay, Black, and brown people in my video game." And in the next photo, we see the same person smiling with some blood stains on their face, as well as a swastika on their forehead. And it goes, and the person is smiling, and it says, "There are gay, Black, and brown people in my video game," and it's open world. So I have a bunch of these, but I believe everyone can get the idea. We have one here, a person being called a fucking faggot, random playing bitch, and one says, this goes a Reddit post from a person, and it's kind of long, so I will not really read the whole thing, but the title says, "Lol. As the game is set in the 1950s, why can't we say any racial slurs? I wonder." And then again, we do have, like I said, a bunch of other examples. People are being called slurs based on their disabilities, racial backgrounds, ethnicities, like gender identity, sexual identity, and all sorts of other stuff. And I will, one person goes in another Reddit post, says that when they state that they are disabled, they begin to say bigoted things towards me, telling me that I'm causing problems. And then the person is faking it, faking their disability or their illness or their mental disorders. And in the next screenshot, we see a screenshot of a research with the title, "1 in 3 female gamers face gender discrimination. 32% deal with sexual harassment." And if you are interested in reading the research, please reach out to me and I can send it afterwards. So it's a bit long, so I only included the title. I think, like I said, everyone can get the general idea of the compilation we made. And Anette, thank you as well. And we do have another example of sexism and harassment in video game communities, racism examples, ageism examples. Like one person says, "When I play an online game of Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2, I constantly hear people deriding people who are underage, and sometimes I have even seen people insulting senior citizens for playing the game." Again, we have some screenshots of players telling other players to go kill themselves. And this one here, the next screenshot goes, "I am better than you. I have food in my kitchen. Die, poor bitch." And the next screenshot shares an image of a drawing in Roblox, a man with a black sun in the background hanging someone wearing a shirt with the transgender flag colors. And in the next one, you see a compilation of horrible comments. It goes, "We hate queers," and other horrible stuff. So, and in this next screenshot that Anette shared with me, it is a bit long, but there, a friend of them shared that I'd like to see accessibility where it's not too involved. I was playing an idle game at one point. It was, let's see. I think it was accessible for the blind, but this one had an inaccessibility in 3 or 4 essential buttons. So even in very essential features of the game, there are accessibility issues. I would like to give the floor to our participants and our speakers, as I do have a lot of examples. I will be putting these in the media center if you want to take a look afterwards. I don't want to spend so much time of our interaction reading these comments, but believe me, there are thousands and thousands of them online, unfortunately. So right now I would like to ask all our participants on a little brainstorming on how we can actually overcome this, how we can make the games more accessible for people, how we can use an inclusive language, or like basically what can we improve to make sure that the gaming space or the communities or the games itself are inclusive and safe for everyone. So I will be stopped to share my screen, and I'll leave you the comments to kind of give your opinions and ideas for a few minutes. Then if not, I'll give the floor back to our speakers and our moderator for the Q&A part. Thank you for listening to me, and I am sorry I have to read these out loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Belit. Thank you. I don't even know if thank you is the right word here, right? But yes, and some shared reflections again, multiple ways of doing that. You can write a comment in the chat. You can raise your digital hand. You can raise your fleshy hand if you like to share some reflections. Perhaps you come across something like this yourself, or you talk about these issues with someone and had some helpful reflections or advice. Like, I'm very privileged. I didn't even believe in gender growing up. It was only when I was sort of an adult that I appreciated. I always said, like, everyone can be whatever they want to be. That was kind of my approach. And that might be correct for me, but probably because I'm very privileged. So just talking to other, in my case, females, taught me a lot that that was not the experience for everyone. And no matter if it's true or not, that's not really the point here. The point is listening to other perspectives and trying to do better. So any other perspectives, like having played a game and realizing something that might be helpful to make the gaming world or gaming community, game making practices more equal, would be really welcome in the comments, or just raising a hand or unmuting and speaking. Yes, a fleshy hand from Rasmus.
Yes, I'm just wondering, because on one hand, what to do is, we all need to speak up when it happens, and we have to have strong moderation. But I'm more thinking, are there places where people can go because I think it must take some mental toll, unless you have to distance yourself from this. If you are subjected to this kind of abuse, just as there are helplines you can call if this and that happens, if your parents have cancer or whatnot, are there places where we can go when we experience online trolling, online abuse, where we can, find some healing? Because I think one thing is that of course it shouldn't take place, and we all need to fight against it. But another thing is that it does take place, and we do see people getting worn down, and I think we even seen suicides of people being told things online. So I'm just wondering, are there ways or places people can where we can direct people when they experience this? Because otherwise you're left alone with this. Actually, this is a question for maybe our speakers and anyone in the participant. Are there these 911, 112 numbers where people can call if they experience this, so they are not left alone with their suffering.
Yeah, thank you, Rasmus. And I'll give Emma and Annette just like a second to, then you can raise your fleshy hand to come in with a comment. Yes, I think it even took a toll of me just listening to this. So I think it must be, really, really hard to live it or whatever you say. And of course, everyone should be allowed to be everywhere in all games, but that's probably just, being too optimistic about the world, I would say. And then, of course, there might be helplines. I also know there are certain kind of gaming communities that are a bit more welcoming than others and so on and so forth. But of course, it's about knowing those. And I think I can see M, you have a comment, and Lars, you were on the speakers list. I'll remember you as well. M? And you,
Yes. As far as I know, there is no helpline for this. As far as I know, I would also there's minority stress, which I think is very difficult to get help of because it is not an official diagnosis. I think, at least not in the Danish handbook of whatever of mental issues or whatever that one is called. So I think it very much depends on whether there are national helplines. I think, of course, there are online communities, but whether there are actual dedicated organizations to helping people who experience these things, I would say probably no. However, there are, for example, queer community support groups are often self-made. They are not as organized, they are not funded, but they exist. There are Discord servers and there are a lot of digital communities that have dedicated talking spaces to talking about these exact things. And they also often have protocols for how to speak about these things, how to do it in a manner that just doesn't necessarily trigger other people, and how to facilitate and how to and when to seek professional help as well. And I think you could probably develop some pretty interesting organizational tools by looking into these methods, but I don't think there's actually any peer-reviewed papers on it either.
Thank you so much, Em. And I saw Sabine sharing a resource in the chat. So it looks amazing, Sabine. Please, everyone, share any resources you might have in the chat, so we can also kind of capacity build in that way. If you have anything you find helpful, or either research tools or whatever. Annette, any comments here or otherwise?
Well,
Yes.
I can say that to my knowledge, at least here in Estonia, you really can't find help, like if online trolling or like something happens in game. Even we have this called like web police officers, like so called, but even they can't do much. They can just tell you to like block people or just like go somewhere else basically, and like no one really has control over the games and over the internet itself. It's kind of like open space for madness.
Yeah, in a bad way, not a good way. I like madness, but not that kind of madness, I think. Lars, we have you next, and then I think we'll move into the Q&A session with Conceição first, and then I also saw a question from Rasmus in the comments. But first over to you, Lars.
Yes, I hope I'm coming through.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Lars.
I just wanted to add a bit of personal reflection, because representation and working with representation is something I also have done in my own professional life. And one thing I find very helpful is to realize that a lot of the goals for a lot of wider society, at least, have remained the same throughout history. Like, the goal is always to repress the minorities, is always to make sure that minorities cannot be heard or cannot be seen, and almost always this is done by inventing reasons why minorities are of less worth, so to speak. Not that we are, but to imply that we are. and that these and it's also important to realize that if we can invent all of these imaginary reasons as a society for why minorities should be of less worth, even though that's false and minorities aren't of less worth, then we are also able to come up with reasons and understand that actually we are all of the same worth, and we all should be seen and heard and feel accepted in society. And I just want to recommend a wonderful book called The Ones on Future Sex, which is wonderful about what do you say, explaining female repression throughout history, and show how while things may seem like they change, they actually don't kind of change, and kind of the goals stay the same throughout the whole of human history, even if the reasons change. And yeah, that's just it.
Thank you so much, Lars. And if you have the chance to share that book with a link in the chat, that would be awesome. Otherwise, someone might be able to find it and share it for you. And I see, Em, you have a comment to the reflection before moving on to Conceição?
Yes, I think regardless of whether you think things could change or have changed, or whether it's intentional goals or structural issues, I think that the overview and the whole large-scale critique on societal level is very much justified. Whether or not historically, I don't know. But I think it's difficult to take this issue out of context when we see that the issue is not only present in video games. I think when you start to consider that re-enabling bodies hasn't been done for years, and we have had tools for it for a long time, and neurodivergencies are always being oppressed in some way, both on job markets and testimonial injustices and hermeneutical injustices. And I think a lot of these issues are beyond the video game industry and beyond video game culture. So I think whilst I agree with you, Lars, on a lot of the levels, I think the aim here is maybe to see what can we then do through video games or for video games. Because I don't know about you, I would love the revolution to come, but I don't have the time to wait for it. So I think a lot of this is also about, as you said, gathering the efforts and finding communities to do something about this. I think rather than the whole large-scale alteration, I think it's about doing what you can, doing it now, instead of not doing what you can, or maybe doing what you can later when the issues are out of hand or the conditions have changed.
Thank you so much, Em. Any additional comments, reflection from you, Annette, or we'll move into the Q&A? Okay, thank you. Otherwise, you can always circle back. Great. Then let's move into the floor is open for everything and all, what's called like everything, everywhere, all at once. I think that's a book title. So Conceição, you have your hand. Please take the floor.
Okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Annette and Em. Again, it was a pleasure, a pleasure to listen to you and the way you open yourselves and to see that both of you. And I'm curious because you say, I believe both of you said you are somehow privileged. So that's why there is a question on the chat that indeed I like that the question initially it was for Annette, but it's for both of you. Because besides all, of course, all these discriminations against minorities, it's not on the video games industry or video games platforms. I know it's elsewhere. Even if you have depression, you cannot tell about it to your boss in general because you or your colleagues, you know. So But of course, what I would like to know is I see some changes, and sometimes we go back, and it concerns me. So I would like that you share with us how the institutions like your families, your friends also, and your schools have supported you during childhood, because you are here. Okay.
Well, I can answer from my side. My schools, my university supports me, but before that, my schools really weren't supportive at all. I kind of went into this kind of elite middle school anyway, and you had to blend into the gray mass basically. And if you didn't, you were different, and it was called out, and it was bad. My parents, they still don't understand why I do AudioCat. They, I think they are proud of me that I'm doing good, but they don't understand why I'm doing it and what is the mission behind it. And 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 I do feel that my parents really don't understand why I am different, and I have to explain myself constantly why I'm doing things in a certain kind of way. I really actually honestly believe there is only one person who 100% gets me. It's AudioCat's co-founder and my best friend Henry, who 100% gets me and understands why I'm doing it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't get like angry at me that I'm doing some things like that, like very aggravate him, but he understands and he just listens and lets me be. Otherwise, I haven't had this kind of support really in my life.
And how about you, Em?
It's a topic. It's definitely a topic. I think, I mean, in school until like ninth grade, until I passed ninth grade, everyone agrees that I probably wouldn't pass ninth grade. And I think that's like middle high school, somewhere in between that, for those who doesn't have the Danish education system. But I think a lot of initiatives have been picking me up along the way, or maybe not even organizations. It's mostly been individual people who has helped me a lot, like pedagogues or youth workers who has helped me or nurtured my interest. And I mean, the way I learned to read English was that I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I wanted to try a new class. And then the guy who played well, he was like, "Well, if you want to play the class, then you have to learn to read the rules, because I'm not reading that. That's 200 pages. You gotta read that yourself." And then I was nurtured to read. So I think a lot of the things are, if we can support those initiatives on the premise of the people who are oppressed. I think that is very much the key, because people have been trying to teach me English for years, but as soon as it was within my field of interest, or as soon as it was in something that I was motivated to do by myself, I didn't feel was stuffed down my throat. Motivation became much more apparent. And I think in regards to family support, that is a difficult topic, also because it's very complex. I think instead I will recommend a book called Queer Phenomenology by Sarah Ahmed. It is very aesthetic and very like spacey and philosophical, but it has one term that I like very much, which is queer tables, which explains how when people are oppressed in the same way or experience some of the same things, they can like come together and form certain communities that can help you navigate those things. To me, it was gender identity. To some, it's disabilities. To some, it's being female in male-dominated spaces. Queer tables is a way to take experiences of powerlessness and turn it into power. And I currently live with 4 of my best friends in a queer collective communal living, in sort of like a self-made family. And I think a lot of it is also when we talk about family or networks or organizations or schools for that matter, we often have a very firm picture of what that looks like. But that picture may not necessarily be the best way to help people or to enable people or to empower people. And I think that's why it's so important to ask communities or ask people how they envision these things. Otherwise, you just end up repeating hegemonic ideas and structures. You have to distribute not who gets to participate, but who gets to imagine how participation looks. Chosen family, exactly. Is it easy to facilitate? Absolutely not. There's a reason why it's always grassroots and why it always happens on individual levels mostly. But that doesn't mean it can't be nurtured.
Thank you, Em, and thank you for sharing, everyone, and also Berit in the chat. And I think that also, I don't know if that's the right term, points to the courage that everyone that is experiencing these things, whether it be in the, I don't know, gender, culture, economy, racial, whatever dimension someone is experienced being, I don't know, being otherwise, being done otherwise, being the other, being alienated or whatever. I'm just I have a follow-up question for both of you, Em and Annette, also bringing us into the domain of games again. So I think, and perhaps starting in the philosophical domain, Em. So I think Levinas has this term of the other, and it was written on the backdrop of World War II and some of the not so nice things that happened there, to say the least. And so Levinas wanted to create this kind of philosophy that could kind of counteract this happening again. There's a lot of philosophers trying to do that. But the term of the other, and how when you approach another person, you have to understand that you can never understand the other. You can never be inside the other. So that kind of just saying, and I think I get that a lot, and I've been that's one of the things I've learned, to not say I understand you to someone, even though that I can sense something or I'm sympathetic or whatever I would call it. I can never come to understand the experience of Em, Annette, or Bailey that they just described. I can be appreciative of it. I can try to be there and open myself up and talk from myself, but I can never own them or own their perspective. I think that's just being open to the other, being open to think and do otherwise, and have a space that is open to the other is also something to be embraced by the gaming community, the game making community, and so on. So that's one part. And the other is then just kind of circling back to you, Em and Annette. So thinking from these perspectives and being done other or being other, and other is a good term in Levinas philosophy. We are all others to each other, so to speak. Have you experienced that games in any way can help, or have they in any way helped coming from these perspectives, coming from these alternative educational trajectories, gaming communities, but they came kind of later. I'm old, so I didn't have gaming communities when I grew up, for example, even though I was also told that I wasn't ready for high school. And well, I kind of was, at least I'm in a privileged position as a associate professor today, right? But perhaps having these alternative trajectories, perhaps games can do something there. I grew up playing Commodore 64 games and being very other doing that as a girl on a pig farm playing Commodore 64. That wasn't very helpful done to myself, I would say, but that helped me at least. Yeah, Em?
I think, games have had a huge impact on my life. I mean, if we take not only digital games, but games in general, that Dungeons and Dragons has probably been the gateway for me to actually go through high school. And I think a lot of, my first realization that something was up with my gender was through a video game called Celeste, which is a platformer about a transgender girl realizing she's transgender by climbing a mountain. And if you haven't played that, I would not recommend it. It's so difficult and you'll be so frustrated, but that is kind of the point. And I've also would recommend Please Knock on My Door, which is a depression simulator. It's very uncomfortable to play. It's not very fun at all, but it also made me the contextualization to see depression depicted as something other than normality actually made me realize, oh, maybe I've been depressed for years. So I think games can hold a very important role in both in navigating individualism, like anything can, any media can enlighten people to reflect on their own position and others' position. But I think in regards to communities, they have a very unique position because they exist in the digital. They are like a digital art gallery, but with more enhanced and willingness to participate and comment and go into dialogue. I think we can learn a lot from fandom, how these things work. Particularly games like Minecraft has also held a very important role to me because it had a very open community. So I think looking into how these, and I think it's also important to note that these communities doesn't just happen on their own. They're nurtured, they're designed, they're facilitated in a way. It's not just something that happens on its own usually. And I think a lot of the role that video game communities and video games in general has had to me is to be able to participate and empathize and read other people's situations and mobilize that as a new knowledge or new knowledge position and say, well, you're experiencing this that way and I'm experiencing it that way, and suddenly we can find common ground, and suddenly I can have a terminology for something that you don't have. These are, if you're a fan of philosophy or phenomenology, this is what Miranda Fricker calls hermeneutic tools. They are used to mend hermeneutic injustice and have gaps of hermeneutics and lacunas. And I think games holds a very unique role in this. And also in regards that it's such an industry-based art form, it's a very late comer into the capitalist society, and therefore the premise for participating in these communities is also very different. You have to own the game, you have to buy the game, you have to have a computer, and you have to have access to the computer, and you have to have internet to it. There's a lot of networks involved in it. And I think one of the things we can do to increase the serendipities of these communities happening is to make sure that they can be facilitated. I think there exist almost no tools to how to facilitate these communities in a productive manner. The closest things I've seen is when game companies hire a community manager, someone dedicated to encourage fans to engage. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think a lot of it is about facilitating it and not just having it by serendipity.
Thank you so much, and I'm having half an eye on the time because we have such an amazing discussion. I wanted to hear your perspective as well, Anette, in relation to how you find the role of games and game making, perhaps also in game communities, like to have something special to offer when it comes to diversity and inclusion, both from your own perspective, also in general, some critical insights on how we can do better, perhaps that we can take with us from today's session before closing it down.
Well, actually, one thing I wanted to comment is like you said that you can't say that I understand the other. This is something that like is maybe the miracle of ADHD brain. When I hear a story about like somebody, my best friend was today telling me like how he had some problems at work, and then it connected to me. Okay, I had a similar thing happening at that time, and I tell him my story. And usually what people do when I say like I reflect back with my story, they're like, okay, you need to make it all about yourself. Actually, it's not that. It's me connecting to the story, to the feeling, so I can understand you better. So basically, I take your story, I switch it up to my own, and then I'm like, okay, I can understand how you feel. But yeah, for some people, it might seem like, okay, you're making it all about yourself, but it's not actually that. And in games in general, I think we can learn a lot about others and ourselves. Like for me, it has been a journey, I think, learning more about myself, because like what I do, how I act, why I act that way. I mean, I'm a big Souls-like games like fan, you know, and they can be really, really aggravating and really irritating if you die to the same boss from the 50th time and you are like, oh my God, I can't do it. And then you like really discover something new about yourself. Can you continue? Do you have the persistence? Do you have the want to continue that game? Or you're just like, okay, I don't care anymore, like let that game be. But the perfectionist in me is like, no, I need to go to the 51st time and try again to like to complete this, because like this is who I am as a person. And like I think that games teach us so much about others and ourselves as the other.
Thank you so much, Anette, as well. I will be slowly wrapping up. I have half an eye on Rasmus because I knew he had a question that we didn't get to, so I'm just seeing if that's okay. That's okay. Okay, good. Slowly wrapping up. I want to post one. I put the link to the next Epic Week session happening Monday. I know Rasmus will have a lot more to say then because he's one of the speakers, so he'll at least get some speaking time there. So please join us for that. But just wrapping up this session, a couple of final reflections, perhaps from me, and then I wanted to put one question back to perhaps Em and Anette to have the final say, as you should, I think. So while you think, I would just like to pose back to you, and then I will say something, and then you will get the final word. From your view, just thinking, listening to both these excellent discussions that we had, and also your experience of each other's presentations and of yourself, what should other people take, what should we, in each our own way, take away from today's sessions on diversity when it comes to the future of games and game making, and what are some or one dream that could come true if we became better of this? And while you just have 30 seconds to panic and think on that question, just reminding, I don't know why this turned into kind of also a philosophy session, but I was just reminded of the Danish philosopher Løgstrup, who is slowly becoming famous also and getting translated. But Løgstrup has this term called the ethical imperative, and what it, very simple said, what it amounts to is that the moment I meet another person, that person is my responsibility. Meaning that the moment me and Annette starts talking to each other, Annette becomes my responsibility, and I become Annette's responsibilities. We are responsible for each other's. So rather, it's almost the opposite of some sort of American, everyone is their own lucky, everyone can become everything, and everyone is their own, creates their own luck. It's almost the opposite. It's very Danish in that way, I would say, that I'm responsible for Annette's happiness in some way, and Annette's future and Annette's fortune. It's my responsibility to be ethical and help her, and vice versa. And if everyone is kind of acting a little bit in that manner in society, we would have just a nice society, because we don't care about ourselves. Someone is caring about us, so I don't have to care about myself all the time. I'm caring for others, and it actually feels quite nice, I would say, as someone that tries to practice it a little bit. So it's highly recommendable to try and play a little bit around with it. Well, enough about that. So back to the question. So what should we, what is the biggest potential taking something away from today, and the big potential when it comes to the future of games and game making and game cultures, and what could be a dream we could make come true if we did this a little bit more? And Annette, over to you first, and then Em, and then we'll close down.
I think there is one thing we should all remember is nothing about us without us. So if you build something for like, I don't know, anyone, then you need to ask for the opinions, you need to listen, you need to get the feedback. I can't build something for the blind community if I don't ask their opinions on it and I don't listen to their criticism and their feedback. So nothing about us without us.
I think that's a beautiful advice in it. And you could even go more radical and say that you also need to work with them or include them even in the process, not only listen to them, but they are part of the process. I think that's really hard, but it could be the dream at least. Yes, M?
Yes, I was gonna say the exact same thing. Great minds think alike, I suppose. So instead of gonna say something that is close to the opposite, it is not the disabled person's responsibility to re-enable themselves. It is our responsibility to re-enable each other. So you cannot just queer representation. There is a lot of, for example, in queer representation, there is a lot of emotional work and emotional labor in creating representation or re-enabling bodies. And that work cannot only be to the suppressed people or the oppressed people. I think that is a very common stance. Of course, we need to help each other with it. But if we put all the feedback over to people, for people to who are differently abled, we end up usually having them do all the work. At least that is I used to work on a Gender Museum Aarhus, and that was one of the issues they had before and worked to avoid was when they had LGBT members or women doing the education there, that a lot of the work came from personal places. I think we need to be careful and need to nurture that the personal experience is respected and handled with care. Otherwise, we're going to have the whole thing tumble down on top of us.
Thank you, Em and Annette. Two beautiful presentations. Thank you, everyone, for a beautiful discussion, I would say. My heart is beating a little bit. It's just for I don't know, not emotional labor, the opposite, emotional love. I don't know what the right term is here. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for a beautiful session. Already looking forward to next Monday. Take care of each other, and see you out there, out and about. Thank you so much for today.